Visiting States and Capitals by Joan Nichols. Let's take a tour. Each state capital or center of government has a story. Kings and queens once ruled in Honolulu, Hawaii. Paul Revere rode on horseback through Boston, Massachusetts. A bat colony lives under a bridge in Austin, Texas. When you visit state capitals, you can see the Capitol, the building where lawmakers work and where important events happen. You can have fun, too. You might see a race, swim at the beach, or visit a roller skating museum. Sacramento, California's capital. Let's start in Sacramento, the capital of California. Its capital was built in the 1800s. It is a museum of history as well as a government office. The historic offices are on the first floor. They have been changed back to how they looked long ago. Sacramento is the gateway to the gold country. John Sutter set up a colony here for Swiss immigrants in 1839. He also set up Sutter's Fort, a trading post. Gold was discovered there in 1848. Hopeful gold miners rushed to Sacramento from all over the world. The colony became a supply post for miners. You can see buildings from those days along the waterfront. Pony Express riders made Sacramento their final stop. Sacramento was also the final stop on the Transcontinental Railroad, which was built in the 1800s. You can see locomotives from that time at the California State Railroad Museum. Faraway capitals. If you live on the mainland of the United States, you must take a plane or ship to visit Juneau, Alaska, or Honolulu, Hawaii. You will discover how different they are from each other. You can ride the tramway in Juneau. The tramway climbs up Mount Roberts and gives a great view. You can see old and new buildings and Gastineau Channel. Mendenhall Glacier is nearby. It is 1.5 miles wide. As it slowly moves, parts of it break off and form icebergs in Mendenhall Lake. Be sure to visit this huge sheet of ice. The Alaska State Museum is in downtown Juneau. It has exhibits on the Inuit and Russians who once lived here. Honolulu is Hawaii's most important city. Planes and ships come and go from here to Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States mainland. Honolulu is called the Crossroads of the Pacific. You can visit Iolani Palace, the only royal palace in the United States. Queen Liliuokalani lived here. She was Hawaii's last royal ruler. The monarchy, a government ruled by a king or a queen, ended in 1893. 5 years later, Hawaii became part of the United States. You can also visit the museums and memorials at Pearl Harbor. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombed the United States Naval Base here. The United States then entered World War II. Capitals of the Southwest. The phoenix is a mythical bird from Greek and Egyptian mythology. Phoenix, Arizona is named for this bird. Hohokam Indians once lived where Phoenix is now. They built an irrigation system, a way of using canals, ditches, or pipes to bring water to dry land. Phoenix was built on their settlement. Austin, Texas has one of the largest urban bat colonies in North America. About 1 million bats live under a bridge over the Colorado River. At sunset every summer evening, they fly out to look for dinner. Santa Fe, New Mexico is about 400 years old. It is the oldest capital in the United States. Spain, Mexico, and the United States have ruled it. The Palace of the Governors is in Santa Fe. It is now a museum where you can learn about the city's history. Artists love Santa Fe because it has beautiful scenery. Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache arts and crafts are displayed in a museum here. The design of the Capitol is based on an American Indian sun sign that stands for the circle of life. On April 22, 1889, homesteaders could claim land in the Oklahoma Territory. More than 10,000 people raced across the border and put up a city of tents along the railroad tracks. That settlement became Oklahoma City. Oil and cattle are important to Oklahoma City. Miners first struck oil here in 1928. Today, the city is one of the major oil-producing areas in the United States. Oklahoma City has one of the largest cattle markets in the world. It also has the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, where you can learn about rodeos, western towns, and African American buffalo soldiers. Capitals of the Midwest. You cannot miss Lincoln, Nebraska. Its capital is 400 feet high. It is called the Tower of the Plains. You can see it from miles away. A statue of a farmer sowing grain stands on top of the building. The prairie once stretched as far as you could see. Visit the 9-Mile Prairie in Lincoln to see how the prairie used to be. At the National Museum of Roller Skating, you can learn about skates and skating. St. Paul, Minnesota's capital, is one of the Twin Cities. Minneapolis is the other Twin City. The Twin Cities are not alike. St. Paul is small and quiet. Minneapolis, a large and bustling place, is across the Mississippi River. For many years, St. Paul was the busiest port on the upper Mississippi. Abraham Lincoln lived in Springfield, Illinois, before he became president. Many of the places that he knew have been kept as they were. The railroad station where Lincoln left Springfield to become president is now a museum. You can visit the law office where he worked, and the tomb where he is buried. You can also see his statue and rub its nose for good luck. The color of the statue's nose has worn away over the years from so much rubbing. Indianapolis is the capital of Indiana. It is also the city of wheels. Car wheels, that is. The Indianapolis or Indy 500 motor race is held every Memorial Day weekend. Cars speed around the 500-mile speedway. Visitors can see racing cars in the Speedway's Hall of Fame. The Brickyard 400 stock car race and competitions of the International Hot Rod Association are held here too. Many auto racing-related businesses make their home in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is called the Crossroads of America because 4 interstate highways and 5 United States highways run through and around it. Indianapolis is laid out like a wheel. Monument Circle is in the center, and streets fan out from it like spokes. Indianapolis is not all about wheels, of course. It also has professional football and basketball teams. Its children's museum has 5 stories full of fun things to see and do. Capitals of the Southeast. Montgomery, Alabama, was the first capital of the Confederacy during the Civil War. A bronze star on the Capitol steps marks where Jefferson Davis was sworn in as President of the Confederacy. More than 100 years later, civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech on these steps. He spoke to 25,000 Americans who had marched from Selma, Alabama to support civil rights. In 1955, Rosa Parks was on a bus in Montgomery when she refused to give up her seat to a white person and was arrested. The famous bus boycott began, and many people stopped riding the buses. The Civil Rights Memorial in Montgomery honors people who died in the struggle for civil rights. Atlanta, Georgia is a modern city with a huge and busy airport. Go under the city to see the old Atlanta. Bridges covered this 5-block area for 50 years. Underground Atlanta has been restored, and you can now see brick streets, gas lights, and old storefronts. Visit the Margaret Mitchell House and Museum. This was the home of the author who wrote Gone with the Wind. This popular novel later became a famous movie about Atlanta during the Civil War. General Sherman and his Union forces attacked Atlanta and burned it almost to the ground. Capitals of the Northeast. Annapolis, Maryland is near Chesapeake Bay and has 17 miles of shoreline. The United States Naval Academy is here. Boats fill City Dock and restaurants serve lots of seafood. You can tour Annapolis in a boat, schooner, or kayak. Rhode Island is the smallest state in the Union. Its capital is Providence. Independent Man is a statue that stands on top of the State House, or Capitol. Roger Williams was Rhode Island's first independent man. He was a minister in Boston who did not agree with the ideas of other Boston ministers. He left and started a new colony, Rhode Island. Both Harriet Beecher Stowe and Mark Twain were famous writers and lived in Hartford, Connecticut. In fact, they were next-door neighbors. Stowe wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. Mark Twain wrote Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Montpelier, Vermont is the smallest state capital in the nation. The State House is made of granite, a kind of stone that comes from a huge quarry. A quarry is a large hole in the earth where stone is mined. Boston, Massachusetts has a lot of history crowded into a small space. It is hard to see it all in a short time. To make it easier, visitors follow the Freedom Trail, which leads to places where important events happened. Colonial soldiers trained on Boston Common during the American Revolution. The Boston Massacre took place in front of the old State House. Paul Revere lived in the house now known as the Paul Revere House. Lanterns were lit in the Old North Church as a signal that the British were headed for Concord.